the 15th of April, 2026. I want to pick up from where we were last night. I meant to go deeper through my feed on X, and we got distracted by some comment about reincarnation, which is way off topic. And I have no problem going off topic because at this point, we're not really chasing headlines, trying to break news or be the first to react, because that's the game. The first to react and deliver a reaction to their target demo who will react in the same way. And I don't react to the news anymore. I'm completely, it's not that I'm numb to it. You know, bread and circuses is very entertaining these days, but it doesn't have any hold over my emotions. I don't treat anything as real just on the face of it. And if it's part of a sequence of events that all seem to have been fake in the past, it's safe to presume that the new version is also fake. Moscow to put nuke weapons in orbit for space Pearl Harbor. Now that's interesting considering the framing of 9/11 as a Pearl Harbor for the generation. Just months after that, Ben Affleck and who else was in it? The was it Liz Taylor, whatever. It was this Pearl Harbor movie that came out that featured a lot of planes crashing into buildings, patriotism, etc. The surprise attack element, and that was months before 9/11, which was this generation's Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor is on 12/7, like building 1, building 2, building 7. There's some interesting related, if you get into the numerology and stuff with some of these events that connect a lot of these things. But again, the space Pearl Harbor thing is the 9/11 scenario involving the space station that we've seen foreshadowed so many times. And interestingly, a lot of it contains the number 113, a lot of this scenario, which happens to be the date that the One World Trade Tower opened and Dick Cheney died. If you believe the news. And again, I'm very clear on the fact that I do think, well, I know for a fact people die. But some of these characters who are playing these historic personages have their lives that they're portraying written in advance. And so it's really not that much of a stretch to suggest that they have a prescribed death date where the character is retired. Or if they don't make it that far, they somehow suppress the information until the last minute. But there's got to be a way of gaming the system to make the dates align, because there are no coincidences on the world stage except for engineered coincidences. You know, you have these kind of half-assed skeptics who say, oh, you guys are just looking at coincidences. It's like, yeah, these are coincidences. You know, good for you. The point we're making is that these are engineered coincidences. So this is from the Times.com. Russia plans to put nuclear weapons in orbit for space Pearl Harbor. General Whiting, the head of the U.S. Space Command, says the Kremlin could cause mayhem by interfering with civilian aircraft and satellites. Russia is planning a nuclear weapon in space to target satellites in an attack that would cause global mayhem, U.S. military chief has warned. The attack in space, the high altitude deployment of a nuke would result in a wider spread EMP, which I think is eminently more fakeable than doing an actual detonation like in a populated area. I think it's going to either be West Coast near Seattle, underwater perhaps, Poseidon, which could be the Christopher Nolan tie-in to the Odyssey. But the unmanned submarine drone that carries the Poseidon that could take out a coastal city. So it's going to be that, the Kraken, you know, Godzilla, who, by the way, is a metaphor for the nuke, always has been. You have that scenario, but you also have the high altitude scenario. And as I pointed out in the first part of Wicked, it ends with a EMP of Emerald City, which is a nickname for Seattle, where she blacks out the city. And she represents Antifa, whereas Trump is the Wizard of Oz. So the EMP thing has been projected in so many movies. The nuke thing has been consistently applied in this end of the world apocalypse, new 9/11 thing has consistently been associated with Seattle. And the date, November the 3rd, again, 113. And I'm not pretending to know what these codes mean. I'm not doing gematria and claiming it means anything or that I'm decoding anything. It's all cognitive bias, selectivity bias, Texas sharpshooter fallacy, and the idea that you could divine something like this. What it does is it kind of shows, okay, this couldn't have been done by man. Like this would imply that a higher intelligence, because there's no way somebody in a production studio could plan things with such precision when you get into their numerology breakdowns. And I think that's why they use it. It eliminates from consideration human manipulators in media, that government does in fact control all entertainment. Duet Celeste says, if Russia sends nukes into orbit, that must mean space and nukes are real. Yes, everything they do validates the system. I mean, the moon landing, for example, it's the ultimate proof that their science is accurate. They achieved this miracle. Morning, Pippi Langstruff, King Ravana. They're thinking about placing a nuclear anti-satellite weapon that would hold at risk everyone's satellites in low Earth orbit and would be an outcome we could not tolerate, says General Whiting. So, for example, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a series called The 100. And it's about how government is handed over to AI, who decides that man is a plague and wipes us out with nukes so that nature can regenerate. Meanwhile, sent a space ark of babies into space so they could grow up and then go down and repopulate the Earth, but with low tech. And it'd all be managed by this AI presence. But the thing is, the people of the world didn't actually die. Their consciousness was uploaded into the city of light. So now they exist eternally in this virtual reality where they don't have a carbon footprint. And the children come back down. Well, they come down as teenagers and they basically establish themselves. But in episode 13 of season 1, so 113, the space station falls. Then in that episode, there was a reference to the Tower of Babel. And as we get into this, you'll see that there's a symbolic linkage between the Tower of Babel, America, the One World Trade Tower, and the Space Needle. These are strong correlations that are intentionally inculcated into these various monuments, because this meta-scripted story takes place even in the architecture and in the dates. There's a manufactured aspect to all these events that goes down to details, and that's why we see so many strange things with numbers. I'm just saying that the gematria people have it wrong, thinking they can interpret the numbers. The best we can do at this point is just recognize patterns, like the pattern of 33s. Well, we can kind of conjecture on what it could mean, but do any of us really know? The best we can do is find the common denominators, and from that, discern or elucidate what it could in fact mean. For example, the numbers like 33 and 42 are so consistently used that you can actually extrapolate what their meaning is in this context, in the context of psyops. And generally, the 33 is more or less, as I would interpret it, a hoax code. But it has other meanings as well. But it's just one of the most obvious and recognizable of these codes. We haven't seen it in use as much, but in 2020, the number 19 was something we talked about quite a lot. 70, like all these numbers, I don't know what they mean. Like Flight 77 flying for 77 minutes and hitting the Pentagon, that's 77 feet high. Like these types of things, you tell me what they mean. All right, let's continue. We're talking about weapons in space. Now, is it going to come from space or come from underwater? Then we have the whole alien thing. But anyway, they're talking about the space Pearl Harbor, so that's something to look forward to. And I've been saying for some time, based on predictive programming that the space station seems to be intended to fall or sink or be taken out, like strategically in some offensive way. But then later they said that they're actually going to contract Elon Musk to take it out of orbit. So he's going to deorbit the thing, put some kind of craft attached to it, and drag it down into the atmosphere so it can burn up. So it is going to have what I described as a fiery end. And my reasoning for this was looking at the various immolations that have attended the various stages of the space program, the story of man ascending into space. And you have what seem to be foundational sacrifices, like the 3 guys burning in the capsule with Apollo 1. And this is before the moon. Then we get to the moon. Then you have, that's getting into orbit. But then we start getting into low Earth orbit with the shuttles, and you have the immolation of the Challenger, 1 minute 13 seconds, 113. So the fire in the sky thing. You have the Columbia, which was the 113th shuttle launch, another one burning in the sky. And I was just suggesting here that we've already figured out low Earth orbit. Now it's time to go to lunar bases and maybe a Mars base. So if we're going to establish space colonies, then don't we need to have some kind of spectacular, fiery destruction of our current level of progress, which would be represented by the space station? So I kind of figured that maybe they're going to spectacularly roast it, like burn the thing, let it burn up in the atmosphere. So we're all watching the thing, or it gets shot down, one or the other. But yeah, it's going to be a fiery destruction in full sight of the public, I think, when they pull it down. No big pieces of it are going to make it to the Earth, I don't think. Duet Celeste says, did NASA miss an opportunity by not having an African-American astronaut? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I just know that with the Artemis mission, you have a lot of people promoting like fake evidence. People are posting AI-generated fake evidence, getting a lot of traction, and then being called foolish for falling for it, or making false claims about how that actor or astronaut is an actor and how the other one was in a movie, the Mad Max movie. People are running with these really, I think, just AI sloppy conspiracy theories. They're not even trying that hard. And it's fooling people. But then people also kind of want to be fooled. And now I'm starting to think, well, maybe that's not it. Like maybe what we're actually seeing here is a consumer demand being met. And what are they demanding? Conspiratainment. I think they just want to laugh. They want some gossip. They want some entertainment. I don't think that anyone's actually like trying to solve any problems. I mean, the guy that looks like Jeffrey Epstein has become a celebrity. He looks like the villain in the movie. And I thought about this. Many of these horror movie villains tour and sign autographs because people love Pennywise. They love Jason Voorhees. For all these different murderers, they're idolized. So it doesn't surprise me that the people who are investigating Epstein actually idolize the guy that looked like him, because it's kind of like, to them, it's just a movie. It's community-driven fan fiction, and they live within this fictional universe, not unlike furries. William Dion says lots of fake fakes. Exactly. And the fake fakes are put there so the people with cognitive bias will share it, and later they can be made to look foolish. They're taking the bait. We call it truther bait. That's another reason why there's no reason to react. You need to actually assess it and then respond. I'm not getting caught up in any fake evidence of anything. What's up, Psy-Up Sidecar? Thanks for joining. Yeah, so the commenter is asking about why don't male astronauts have their hair out of control? Why only females? That's a valid question. They haven't had any male astronauts with long hair, have they? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but I think by military standards, not that they're necessarily like military, but you think they'd have their hair tied up in a bun. In fact, you know what? When I watched that movie ISS, which came out on January 19th, 2023, ISS, I said, I'm going to watch this movie to see if their special effects on the hair are better than what NASA can do. And if so, I'm going to draw attention to it. And I went out there with the intention of watching for the hair. And guess what I found? If you haven't seen the movie ISS, it has images of the ISS falling and burning and all this stuff. In fact, in the movie, what happens is Russia starts nuking America and America fires back. And then it becomes mutually assured destruction. And so the ISS are given orders. They're told, the Americans are told, take over. The Russians are told, take over. So America and Russia are fighting in space over control of the ISS. And in the entire movie, there's not one stray strand of hair. They all have their hair in these super tight buns. And I was like, oh, that's a letdown. I was really wondering, and I was super curious about how they're going to do Tom Cruise's hair when he does his movie in space in the space station's movie studio. So it's like a movie studio within a movie studio. And what happens if what they produce in the inner movie studio looks realer than what's in the outer studio? That's a contradiction. And I wondered aloud at this. I'm like, if Tom Cruise does a movie and it looks super real and his hair is like flowy CGI, people are going to say, wait a minute, how come it doesn't look like what we see on the ISS if that's how it really looks? And he went to space to make it look real, and yet it looks realer. You see, that cognitive dissonance was something I was ready to play into, and they canceled his trip. Psyop Sidecar says, at my work, ESPN is always on silent on the TV at the bar. It's maybe you notice how fake sports are. What they're promoting now is WrestleMania 42 Vegas. Okay, 42 is consistently associated with gravity, darkness, blackouts, and anything Saturnian, descent, falling. Whereas 33 has to do with ascension, the phoenix, the idea of the Christ, and of course, it's Mach 33. If you heard the astronauts talking about it, we had to go Mach 33 to exit the Earth. Yeah, Spaceballs 2 is coming out. I saw the trailer. It looks like it's going to be funny. Rick Moranis is in it. I'll have to rewatch it because I was thinking about this movie, Project Hail Mary, which is very cartoonish. And I was just thinking about, the best space movies I think that I've seen have been parodies, and I wanted to rewatch some of these things. Yeah, they do see a nuclear war from space, just like that one guy saw 9/11 from space while listening to the Tom Clancy novel audiobook, Sum of All Fears. And he said to himself, wow, hey, cosmonauts, come over here. Look what's happening in America. It's just like what's happening in this audiobook we're listening to. You got to listen to that guy's fishtails. The whole thing was just story after story about how we could see these things from space. And back then, they used handheld cameras to record the Earth. It wasn't a CGI model that they were referencing, so that you could actually see the hand, that you could note the hand shaking the camera. And it looked like a painted movie set, like a miniature of the Earth. Like it looked like a map or something that they were pointing at. It was just a joke. Duet Celeste says it's going to be a long guilt trip if humanity accidentally offs all the aliens in the universe with nukes. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Well, okay, in many scenarios in science fiction, and this has been generations of UFO propaganda. And I don't think it's a build-up to an actual invasion. I really don't. I think it's just a modern iteration of revelation, rapture, and various eschatologies. But regardless, because I think it has that function, I don't think it needs to actually materialize. Just like the religious people have never had a materialization of their prophecies. They can drag these things out forever. But regardless, in many of the movies, the aliens intervene when man starts messing with weapons of mass destruction. That's when they step in. And they say, if you can't get along, we're going to have to take away your weapons. Something like that. Plain Dakota says there was a movie called District 9 where the aliens lived in a Gaza-like place. But when you look at the posturing of the right towards aliens, everybody on the right says they're demons and they're anti-Christian. Everyone on the left says there are galactic space brethren and we all need to become one. It fits this pattern so well that I just think it's an extension of the respective views on immigration. Like, I think they've programmed xenophobia into half the population for a reason. And they've extended that xenophobia to outside invaders from outer space. And it also applies towards the concept of AI, like the fear of the unknown. So I think it's just for fear. And for the progressives or for the atheists, it serves the psychological function of installing a belief, which is superstitious, not scientific, in angels. These are the aliens are angels for the atheists. So I hate to, deliver, your order and it's just a bunch of nothing burgers, but that's what it is. The alien thing is nothing. There's nothing to it. Spoiler. It's a major spoiler here. They're never gonna materialize. King Ravana says, why Nutella? Yeah, I was asking myself the same thing. And someone had brought up the movie Artemis, which is about faking the moon landing. Well, no, I'm sorry. It's called Fly Me to the Moon, about Project Artemis, faking the moon landing. And it was going on the same time as Apollo. So the meaning of it, of course, was the twin. Apollo, Artemis are twins. But in that one, Scarlett Johansson is this marketing expert who's hired by NASA to promote the event. And it's her idea to promote Tang with the moon launch. And that is sort of what this Nutella thing seems to be. I'm like, are they promoting Nutella? Yeah, peanut butter. What is that? Pippi says 33 blood-brain barrier. I don't know what that means, but I'll take your word for it. I'll look it up. So the 33 thing is so consistent that I've once said we should just quarantine the 33-year-olds for a year if you want peace. I mean, how old was the guy that charged into the Capitol on January 6th wearing animal skins, carrying a spear? Anybody care to guess? How old was Dave Koresh when they incinerated him? How old was Martin Luther when he nailed the 95 Theses to the door? How old is McVeigh? Well, they executed him probably, I mean, he was at 33, but anyway, the point of it is you just find a disproportionate number of 33-year-olds at the center of all the mayhem. That would include Charles Manson. It's like that number has some significance. And I tend to think it relates to order out of chaos. And the idea, of course, the chaos being engineered. And that's what we see. You see the manufactured crisis, and then both sides respond like predictably. Whatever happened to Starman? Do you remember the car in space? I kept hoping it would hit the capsule. What would that have done? We're talking like 17,000 miles per hour. And we don't ever see, well, no, we did have one example. This is a weird one. Do you remember when they were doing celestial immunizations? They called it celestial immunity. So they were up in the ISS in 2020 getting their vaccines. And while they were up there doing this, on the outside, they have this mechanical arm, and the arm got hit with a piece of space junk, punctured a hole in it. So, like, okay, so I got a hole punctured in the arm. It was just kind of weird. Again, just the timing of it. It's like the ISS got vaxxed. All right, let's see here. Turning on my Twitter account so I can catch up. I was trying to get to this last night because I know there were a few things that were just extremely important. All right. Oh, Candy, yeah. Yeah, this is again, I don't know if you call it gaslighting or short attention span, but a lot of people are just so gaslit that they don't even care if there's discrepancies. But Candace Owens has been caught in a pretty big lie. I know this is not news to anyone that she's a confabulator, but that's her job. But she had talked about how they did not disclose Charlie's gravesite because it was a Catholic funeral and they wanted to keep that a secret. And now she says she doesn't know if he was cremated or not. So her stories are wildly contradictory. And I only pointed out to show the low standards of evidence and the low quality conspiracy theories that the mainstream alternative people follow. Like they find this stuff credible. I'm on Team Erica. I know they're both actresses. The whole thing is this is an engineered soap opera, and I think it's brilliant. They have these like daily plot twists. It's not like it's organic. We have to remember that these individuals who are, really central to the Charlie Kirk psyop, they were written into the story just as much as he was. And so everything you're seeing now is a continuation of that story. So there may be some apparent improv and maybe speaking off the cuff, but they're pretty much in character, which isn't really that hard to see. Vincent Omania said, more potential predictive programming of a deadly global biohazard in the new Liam Neeson flick Cold Storage. Therein, a mutating, highly contagious fungus escapes a sealed facility. 2 employees, joined by the bioterror expert Neeson, must survive the wildest night shift ever to save humanity from extinction. Now, that's going to be hard for me to watch because I watched Naked Gun, and I don't know if I want to. I like Liam Neeson, and I'm not sure, but I kind of like him as this deadpan comedian. Maybe I'll watch it. But the idea of him being a bioterror expert to save humanity from extinction is just, I don't know, a little unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, though, Naked Gun does have sort of a doomsday attachment to it. It's not like a bioterror attack, but it's a mind virus attack. The enemy, the antagonist in Naked Gun with Liam Neeson is a character named Kane, who's obviously based on Elon Musk, and he controls all the electric vehicles. What he does is he takes out his enemies by hijacking control of the computers, and he laughs at them as they die. Well, this evil villain has created this thing called the plot device, and it goes into every smartphone. And on D-Day, whenever he decides, he presses a button, and every person holding the phone will revert into a very primal, aggressive state and start attacking each other. And basically, humanity will destroy itself while the elite are in cush underground bunkers with the best of live entertainment, including Weird Al Yankovic. And that wasn't the only movie at the time that had a theme of the elite hiding out in bunkers while the surface gets wiped. Sort of like a flood. Lord Laney says, my babysitter used to watch Days of Our Lives on a loop. I think it ultimately helped me to recognize the soap opera aspect of the everyday soap psyop opera. Ooh, Erica Kirk, says Deprogram Truther, has called all the questioning of Kirk's death a mind virus. See, passively accepting it, by definition, is the mind virus. The reason why we're questioning it, if it's based upon additional evidence, is actually the active process of discovery. So, no, I don't think it's accurate to say it's a mind virus. Yeah, Liam Nielsen, whatever it is. Somebody said it's a Mandela effect, like Joel Osteen. I'm so glad we killed the Mandela effect. Yeah, who came up with the term psyop opera or psyopera? I think it was, I got to double check on this one. We have to add it to the lexicon, because what we're seeing here is weaponized drama. It's bred in circuses, and it's not always high death tolls or shootouts or explosions that hold people's attention. A lot of times it's the drama and it's the participation. So one of the other points I've been making recently is that every single psyop is split, it's bifurcated perfectly so that the left and the right have antagonistic interpretations, but they agree that it happened. And they're usually blaming each other. So they're all built into this triangulation structure. And the reason they do this is because they need you to fight over the fake events. They don't care if you fight over real events. When you fight over the fake event, when you participate, you help make it real because they're cementing this thing in the collective memory as a historical incident. And it will go into the history books. So your participation on the pro or the anti side is the objective. That's the way. And I talked about George Soros writing about this idea of dialectics and controlling history. Like, this is what is actually allowing them to fabricate history, your involvement in the events. And that's why they're split so perfectly. They invite your participation on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And when they bring out a character like Erica Kirk, well, now you get a lot of people digging into her background, doing LinkedIn, researchers doing documentaries on her. And what they're actually doing is they're helping to make the event real because they're involved in fake. By treating a fake character as real, it presumes the rest of the whole thing is real. It's very clever. The conspiracy theories get people deeper into the matrix because the normies only half-ass pay attention. The conspiracy theorists who are red pill woke, they go super deep. And going super deep isn't liberation. It's a deeper level of confinement. It's like built into the system where if the regular dosage of mind control doesn't work, there's harder stuff if you look deeper. And people do get addicted to, I believe, the current thing. Like, some people are like, okay, the blood's dry on the Charlie Kirk thing. Can we move on to another event? It's like they're so addicted to the headline, to the reactivity, to the fight or flight, that the normal flow of things bores them because they have a new normal, which is chronic entertainment, over entertainment. And this is like November, December. And I'm like, no, we're not done talking about the squib. We're not done until everybody knows. We're just barely getting started. Lord Lane says the mind control kind of works because sometimes when saying Osman, I say Osman, like from the Moans military psyop. Oh, yeah. Jason Moans? Is that the one? Is that the guy who had an FBI father and he decapitated him on a live stream? And he had a manifesto? And everyone said he looked like me? It's like, oh, that's terrible. Dr. Bass Ackworth says, I can already see the bumper stickers. Vote, I am Erica Kirk for president. Well, if you go by the predictive programming, Erica Kirk's going to be vice president under President J.D. Vance. This is foreshadowed in 2025 Heads of State. And everything about her character was foreshadowed and presented real time in streaming video, but her character has been foreshadowed. It's been introduced to us in the past, as far back as 1998 or further back. In fact, I need to get back to these ebooks I've been working on with the Erica Kirk from 1967, the wife of the governor of Florida. Very strange, this Madam X character, how it seemed to have, and she was married to a guy named Charlie Kirk. I mean, the whole thing is just really bizarre. Or no, Claude Kirk, excuse me. Erica Kirk and Claude Kirk. And had the K in the name. JD in his third name change, strangely, says Lean Dion. Yeah, one of his names wasn't it David Bowman? I got to look it up. There was something strange about JD Vance's names. There are people who are saying that JD Vance is Erica Kirk. Like, just stop. We saw them on the stage hugging. Because I think, oh yeah, that's right. It's on Wiki. One of them was Bowman. Others are saying that Erica Kirk and J.D. Vance are siblings, and their father is Michael Aquinos from the Temple of Set. These are the same people who think that Taylor Swift is Zena LeVay. It's like, yeah, they have the same eyebrows. Big deal. Zena LeVay's in her 50s, if not 60s. And she's more or less been in public the entire time. Like, people they don't do their research before they make their claims because they're just like the mainstream. They're like, oh, never let facts get in the way of a good narrative. Okay, James Donald Bowman. Okay, that was his name. Middleton, Ohio. I mean, this is a backstory. I can't even read it right now. It's a backstory. I'm not sure why though, but have you noticed that the mayor of New York, the new mayor, what's his name? I know he was sworn in the subway. Isn't it? I know there's an anagram for "I'm Madman." Man, anybody have his name? Because I was looking at this guy, and I thought, oh yeah, that's right, Mayor Mamdani. And I was like, why does this guy look like an Ozempic version of J.D. Vance? Very strange. Maybe that's just my facial blindness, but when I see this guy's face, I see the Mayor Zoran Mamdani. I'm like, that looks like J.D. Vance after a little bit of the zombie shot. But anyway, let's move on. I've been trying to get to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was reading biblical scripture at the Pentagon today, and it turns out he was reading a fake Bible verse. He was reading the verse read by Samuel Jackson's character in Pulp Fiction before he would shoot people. He would give this quote from Ezekiel 25:17, and this biblical quote wasn't actually an authentic biblical quote. I think Quentin Tarantino kind of wrote it, and so Pete Hegseth read that to the people of the Pentagon. Then we have death threats against Erica Kirk now. Someone tweeted, or they volunteered to stab her and see if she's actually what Candace Owens called a sentinel. Lord Laney says, the JD, the doctor from Scrubs, also looks like an Ozempic JD Vance. Okay. I'll have to look. I've been seeing a lot of these though. So Rachel tweets, Lord, we pray Erica gets the same treatment as Charlie. She wants Erica to get kirked. Sometimes I think I might get kirked at some point in my life because of what I'm saying. Because everything you say is going to make somebody mad. And I'm not trying to antagonize any groups. I'm actually trying to protect them. Like when I say the J pillars, get out, go find a community that will accept you. I'm doing it for their own good because we're intransigent in our views. We're not going to open our arms to J Pill or Antifa. We don't have room for world stagers in this. We don't need to dilute our research pool. Nor do we want to be guilty by association by being too tolerant of extremist views that don't represent what we're about. What's up, Busy56? Thanks for joining. The 80-year cover-up of non-human intelligence. The Age of Disclosure. It's a film coming out very soon. Steven Spielberg said that the trailers don't even feature the final third of the movie, so we don't know. Copaesthetic says Artemis, Bowman, Broken Arrow. Yeah, look, there's something there. Believe me, I think there's something there. And we have to keep in mind, too, Artemis is Diana, lunar goddess, but is also the twin of Apollo. But yeah, the archery thing has been a big part of it. And the broken arrow is a reference to a nuke. Let's see, Ruby Ridge was 33 years ago. Somebody said on Twitter, never forget, 33 years ago, we learned the government will kill your dog, shoot your son in the back, and snipe your wife in the doorway if she holds your infant child, 1993. Randy Weaver. I remember Alex Jones talking about this. You know, Alex Jones helped raise money for the Branch Davidian cult to rebuild. I mean, think about that. Like, he's that involved in the event that radicalized Timothy McVeigh. And I watched the documentary that came out about it. It was called Waco, American Apocalypse. And it came out a day before Trump kicked off his 2024 campaign in Waco. Like, that's when I started pointing out, hey, this concurrent programming thing is big. We've been off the mark by noticing predictive programming after the fact. We need to be looking at what is presently being broadcast and how it relates to engineered events. But in that trailer for Waco American Apocalypse, one of the first things it talks about how they went in there for 1.6 million rounds. The ATF said that they had 1.6 million rounds. I was like, oh, 1.6. Kind of interesting bit of code. And a lot of this code goes that far back because it correlates directly with January 6th. And one of the faces of Jan 6 was, of course, Alex Jones. Okay, let's continue. David Icke says, it's a simulation. Reality is nothing. Nothing. You're being played on a monumental level. Your attention is being manipulated by dramas. Your body and brain is a biological computer decoding matrix information. Fields of reality that we think is real. It's like a virtual reality headset. I disagree. I think that's a misinformation line, and he may believe it. When it comes down to it, the simulation concept is a metaphysical model. It's not a theoretical model. And not only that, it's monotheistic in nature. It's just God by another name. And I think the reason why simulationism is pushed in Trutherville is so you don't separate the media-generated simulation from the real world. They want you to think that everything's a simulation. And then this makes the glitches on the television, on the news, the coincidences that we point out, it makes those seem like evidence of simulation, not evidence that everything is being manipulated through simulated events. In other words, it's a misinformation line. No, we're not in a simulation. The news media presents a version of the world that you could consider to be a simulation, which we internalize, but it's not the same thing. And this is a very important distinction because, again, simulationists have basically lost their grasp of objective reality. They don't even believe in it. They no longer believe in it. And I've spoken to many of them, and many of them don't even believe they have free will. I'm like, that must be nice, though, to be able to shut off your free will once in a while. Like, you go into work, you just turn it off, and then you just go into NPC mode, where you just kind of passively sit there while everything just happens automatically. I don't know how that works. How does it work not having free will? I'm curious. It just seems like it would be less work. Okay, Elon says, real progress means becoming multiplanetary, having two planets that are both self-sustaining will be important for the long-term survival of civilization. There's a lot of talk right now about Donald Trump being the Antichrist, and you can add Tucker Carlson to that list. Tucker Carlson draws a parallel between Donald Trump and the Antichrist. He says the president's actions perfectly align with the descriptions of the leader who exalts himself above all deities and mocks faith. It's a dark time for Washington. Busy says, I just heard about a 1968 film called Targets about a military guy turned mass shooter, and he does a mass shooting in a movie theater. Ooh, that's one we need to take a look at for the deconstruction. James Holmes. Do you remember James Holmes was described as a Joker? With the orange hair, but they described him as a Joker and the Joker shooter. Like we had Joker, the Boston bomber. But when that event happened, the group of people who were watching the movie were watching a trailer for a gangster film by Sean Penn, which opens up, the trailer does, with a bunch of gangsters coming through a movie theater and shooting up the theater. They go through the screen and they shoot everybody. Now that happens, and then James Holmes walks in and shoots everybody. Anyway, we'll go into this stuff in detail in our great deconstruction as we show how the entertainment is fused with the fake events. And the only logical explanation for the timing is that the fake events are planned that far in advance. That's one of the important points to get here, is that the concurrent programming reveals that the fake events that we witness are things that are planned sometimes years in advance. So this eliminates the idea that you need to presuppose that people are dying. No, these scenes are cleared. These are closed sets. These things are very well organized. They're not spontaneous. But not only that, it reveals how entertainment is an extension. It's in collusion with media and with the government itself. And I think that's what a lot of the guardrails are there to hide. The people who can't wrap their heads around predictive programming without reaching a simulation, a lot of these people are likely paid not to notice. In other words, operatives like David Icke who stick to certain lines because maybe they know what they're hiding. Because if you were to follow this line of thinking and recognize, oh, wait, there is this synchronization, and you can demonstrate it event after event after event. You can predict it, in fact, as we frequently do. When you look at that, it opens up this whole category of inquiry that they probably don't want us thinking about. Like, for example, what production companies are colluding with government and media to run psyops on the population? What directors? From which directors can you remove plausible deniability, where asking them is a legitimate question? And a lot of them are now approachable thanks to X and social media. So it's kind of interesting to consider the implications. I went to go see Beetlejuice, which had the symbolism there. Of course, Beetlejuice, the Joker-esque character, greenish hair. We were looking at the movie to see what kind of programming it might have, and it came out right after the Trump event in Butler, Pennsylvania. And in the movie, there's Trump in the netherworld, waiting in line to be checked in a gold suit with an American flag lapel on the left, and it basically is a gold-looking Trump dude. And I snapped a picture of it, and then I tweeted it to the director of the movie. I tweeted it to Tim Burton, and I'm like, kind of interesting that you predicted this. And my tweet got taken down with the copyright notification, which had never happened to me before, but it got pulled. But anyway, my point here is that we can identify directors that are, I think, consciously part of the PSYOP production process. Like, I don't think it's far off, like what Chartword suggested, to posit that maybe Stanley Kubrick quite literally directed 9/11. And I would say in collusion, in collaboration with individuals such as James Cameron. And I mean, who else would have had a big role in it? I'm thinking Spielberg. Spielberg and Kubrick were working together on that movie AI. What was that, 2001? Okay, missing nuclear official becomes 10th person tied to dark patterns surrounding U.S. secrets. These scientists are being put into a witness protection program, in my opinion, says Jordan Crowder. Rumor is all major nations have been given exotic UFO technology by the others, Hunger Games style. That's a nice rumor. A new clock is ticking fast. Something's coming our way. All Americans with this particular skill set and knowledge are apprehended and taken underground. A super secret Manhattan project on steroids. Okay, so what he's suggesting is that the scientists who are skilled in this particular area are being conscripted to save the world from the other countries who've also been given the alien tech. So in the movie Project Hail Mary, the main character is taken out of his classroom by a group of scientists who want his particular skills so he can save the earth by helping to save the sun, by whatever is killing it, by going to a distant planet and getting some substance to save the sun. He's a sixth grade teacher who's taken out of class to do this task. And this is a common theme in certain types of these movies where these normies are taken out of obscurity and put in a position to save the world. I think Armageddon was like this as well. You know, the movie where Bruce Willis has to ride on top of the asteroid and put bombs in it and deflect it. Lean Dion said, yeah, there's a movie narrative playing out with murdered scientists. Yeah, it's almost cliche, isn't it? It's a trope. Dark pattern. If it's even real, according to Mick West, it's really not that anomalous statistically. It's just the way that people are presenting it. But I don't know. You know, he could just be hyping it up because the evidence or the appearance of a cover-up helps sell the conspiracy, which is paradoxical. It's like you have a conspiracy and the lack of evidence makes it more compelling. So here's a little note here from Vulture. In the 2024 film Fly Me to the Moon, the code name for the secret project to film a backup staged version of Apollo 11 is called Project Artemis. The failsafe plan is commissioned to ensure the U.S. has a convincing video in case the 1969 mission failed or cannot broadcast. So how's that for an explanation of the media of the moon fakery? Oh, we had to fake it in case we didn't do it for real. This sounds like a liar caught in a lie, just grasping at straws. But there's some other notable elements to this film that connect it to Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, which also stars Scarlett Johansson. And in that one, her co-star is a character obviously representing Stanley Kubrick. And that's the one where the characters put boxes on their heads, you know, the cube, and then the alien descends in a hexagonal spacecraft. You know, I'm curious, when Pete Hegseth quoted the Pulp Fiction Bible verse at the Pentagon, I'm curious what percentage of the people there actually noticed. I'd guess that nobody noticed. Rep Luna called the White House when the Pentagon failed to deliver 46 UFO videos, and she said, whoever's trying to be cute at the Pentagon is about to get rolled. So Rep Luna is the face of this UFO disclosure story and has been for some time. And I think she got her start. She was one of these MAGA ladies like Bobert and MTG. They all seem to be competing for attention. And I think she got attention by wearing like this bikini and releasing these videos where she's like firing a gun. But regardless, I just think it's interesting the name Luna, you know, the moon reference, and she's all about these UFO files. FEMA official claims he was teleported. Trump comments on it. Again, they're really widening the Overton window right now. It's becoming tabloid. And I saw that Trump caught some flack for posting an image of himself as Jesus. This is not new. They've been Christifying Trump for years. And it's bizarre to me that MTG calls him the Antichrist, where in 2023 she was calling him Christ. Tyler Robinson's gun confirmed it's a match. They recovered a bullet fragment from the scene, and it's .30 caliber, consistent with Tyler. So what does this do for the conspiracies involving exploding mics? So I'll probably go watch Spaceballs, the new one. It comes out next week, and I'll do a review. I see some trailers here. It actually looks. I guess it's going to be. I don't know. Whenever I watch some of these movies that I thought were funny in the past, I'm always like, why did I find that funny? Grok says no. Christina Koch, the astronaut, is an electrical engineer who worked at John Hopkins, Antarctica, and NOAA stations. No acting career. The Mad Max credit is a different woman with the same name. Victor Glover appears in space documentaries as himself. All four have deep STEM and military credentials, not Hollywood credentials. Again, the grok is there to fact check things, and the people I see fact check the most are these truther channels that have huge followings, and they never go back and delete stuff. Yeah, Lean Dion, good point. Victor Glover went biblical. So he went biblical. Yeah, and I'm like, why are they mixing this with science? To me, that's a red flag. The Easter timing, but then they're going up into space, and he's saying, well, there's 8 billion of you that you need to pray for us all at the same time. Send your thoughts and prayers. So how does that work? If you're a believer, you send your prayers. If you're an atheist, you send your thoughts. Like if you don't believe in God or something, can you still are you still being asked to participate? That's what it seems like. Everyone just send your attention up here. Send us your loosh. You know, I was reading about the guy who coined the term loosh this morning. His name is Robert Monroe. And one of the things that, he was a radio host. He died in like 1995, I think. Let me see if I can get some of the information here. I'd taken some notes. I was listening to something about this individual. But anyway, yeah, Robert Monroe wrote about this idea of Gnosticism and the archons that are here harvesting our energy, which the Gnostics called the harvest of the passions. But what he was emphasizing here is that the energetic exchange, which he referred to as loosh, is greater from certain types of conflicted emotions than from violence or actual pain. So the extraction of energy from the invisible archonic rulers, the matrix entities, apparently is done through things like guilt trips or attachments to toxic situations, being stuck daydreaming or longing for something better. But in other words, a whole wide range of emotions apparently are highly sought after by these, what are described as archons. But anyway, Robert Monroe is the guy who coined the term loosh. I was kind of curious as to where that term came from. And I think that there might be something to it. If you look at all the various movies where they're like The Dark Crystal, for example, and what was that other one, The Golden Compass? There's so many examples of movies where Monster Inc., where the bad guys, the antagonists, in some way extract something out of the innocent and harvest it. A City of Lost Children is a very disturbing one. All these movies that contain this element could be referencing this concept that Monroe described as loosh. Donald Glover did the voice for Yoshi in the Mario Galaxy movie. Donald Glover, that's not Victor Glover though. But it is an interesting overlap. I'll have to consider that because Mario Galaxy was made very relevant to the Artemis launch because one of the main stories about Artemis was how they all had to wear diapers because their toilet malfunctioned. And Mario is a plumber in space. Like, how convenient. Braveheart said, I was watching a video that was saying that going to the light is bad, and all those movies you referenced, the soul-sucking destruction is done with light. Yeah, like the movie, like It. Do you remember, like, Don't Look at the Bright Lights? And then there was something else I had seen. Which was the other one? Where... Oh, yeah, no, it was a book. The War for Souls came out in 2012 by Whitney Strieber, the guy who wrote Communion. And in it, the UFOs are sending beams of light that quite literally suck people's souls out and put them into these containment units, leaving these soulless zombies walking around. But again, what's the point of the toilet malfunction? It's got to be a Super Mario Brothers tie-in. What else could it be? Unless it's some kind of humiliation ritual. But again, the important key point here, Artemis goddess, Easter, Ishtar goddess, sun god dying, resurrecting. Project Hail Mary, main character named Grace, Hail Mary, full of grace. And in it, it starts off where he symbolically dies as he's drugged and sent into space. And he resurrects years later with long hair and a beard like Jesus. And he tears his way out of the Matrix pod, like he's coming out of a cocoon, like he's being born again. And then in this new capacity, he saves the world. And after he saves the world, he lays down his life for his best friend. Very Christ-like. On Easter. And Glenn Beck was talking about this on his show, how on that day that Artemis is going out there, it's like 4/3, April the 3rd. He said, yeah, April the 3rd, AD 33 is the exact day that Jesus got killed. Lean Dion says, not going to the light could be mind slop. Yeah, I failed. Look, I don't believe that at the end of this thing, you're put into some kind of awkward game show. It's like, choose which door number 1 or door number 2. Like, I don't think it would be like that. I think if there's any sort of volition here, it'll be like, do you want to go for another spin or are you good? The idea that you could accidentally make the wrong choice and now you're stuck here for another 75 years or something. Yeah, I don't know. Where do people get this information? And I think these are important questions. Like, where do you get your information? When people say, oh, the Charlie Kirk event was a ritual. Well, what does that mean? Like, show me the source. Spratley says, why were they even in diapers? Couldn't they have used? Yeah, exactly. I want to know why we know. Like, why is this made public information? And I think the reason why is that they want the story to percolate down to even like the children and kids in school. And so I think this kind of story, this anecdote, makes it a little more interesting and realistic. But I think they could do it in another way. I would be convinced that space travel was real if I could see one of them, vomit in space. Not that I want to see that, but you get motion sickness. You're going, Mach 8 or whatever, or Mach, how fast are they going when they're in low Earth? But I mean, how would you fake that? How could you fake it without CGI? Like, even if you were to do it in a parabolic flight, which might be possible, maybe that would do it. But you would have like particles of it floating around for hours. Like I'd be curious about that. That would convince me. Another thing that would convince me they were in space is if they took a cat up there. Because there's no way you're going to get a cat to sit comfortably and stable in a harness. It's going to swing and fight it and stuff. So the idea that a cat in space, like in fake space, no, it just wouldn't work. So it would have to be real. Speaking of that stray cat that I've been feeding off and on, I didn't know this the other night, though. It somehow got in, because I leave the door open when I'm outside doing art, and it got inside at some point. So I went inside, and I passed out in the office where I sleep. And at like 3 a.m., this home invader, basically, is outside the office door, yelling at me, meowing at me to wake up so I can let it out. All right, let's see here. Continue. Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy was asked about mutilating the raccoon. He just laughed about it. I haven't dug too deep into the story. Pentagon accused of cover-up after failing to release UFO videos. So I think you can see my point here, that whenever we hear about the UFO stuff, it's really not about UFOs. It's about the belief in the supernatural presence, a higher than man, a potential cosmic judge. But I think it's really just part of the worldview infrastructure. I don't think it actually has to exist. I've also seen a few channels pop up. There's one that's doing like a field test of squibs. So I do see a presence of people out there who are talking about the squibbing situation. And I think that's great. However, I think that the conversation needs to go a little further than simply the how they did it, but deeper into the why. And I'm prepared to answer that question. And one of the projects that I've been storyboarding here is a video on the topic that is inclusive of the world stage and how the event fits into it. I'd like to accelerate some of these projects, but at this point, it's probably going to have to wait for another. Yeah, the cat just came in here, heard me talking about it. It's going to have to wait another week or so. I plan to be getting into the new IPS headquarters on the 22nd. And then from there, we go right to work. I already have batches of handbooks en route. In fact, I sent a copy of the handbook for the recently deprogrammed to Mark Sargent, thinking that we can possibly discuss it. I'm going to try to get into contact with him over the next few days, and we can schedule something. And I have been keeping note of the questions that many of you have asked for me, or questions you want me to ask him. I think someone would want to know if he believes that Jaron actually went to Antarctica. I'd be curious to know his thoughts on it. I mean, the thing about the final experiment is the only reason why I think it's fake is they've given us reason to think it's fake. The first thing that Jaronism did is he said, that mountain is 15 miles away, but it looks like it can reach out and touch it. Ha ha ha. And then he says the same about a glacier. Someone else does the same thing. When have you ever heard somebody joke about being able to touch distant mountains? Like, does that even make sense? You would never say such a thing unless you were looking at a projection of mountains on the wall in a simulation. No, I'm not saying they were in the Vegas sphere. If anything, they were in some kind of hangar, some SpaceX hangar. That would be my guess. Why didn't they actually go to Antarctica? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that you can take a vape with you into Antarctica. I find that questionable. If you all remember Vape Gate, which was never quite answered to my satisfaction. If you're not familiar with Vape Gate, it was somebody using a vape to make it appear to be colder than it was. Okay, I was just going through the rest of my NASA not flat. We checked. Give me a break. Can we talk about the NASA Artemis thing? And there was this weird conversation where one of the actors was asked about what this all means. She said, "You are all crew on Spaceship Earth," but she froze for like 15 seconds, like she forgot her lines. Maybe it was an attempt to appear to be emotional. All right, I think we've covered it all, though. I'm going to go through the Discord server really quick. If you haven't been to Discord, we tend to go there now after live streams. Go to ips.monster. I put a link there. I discussed that maybe we should just do a South Park episode on the CK event, which might be a good way to get a lot of our points out there. The cover of comedy fiction cartoon, and I'm very much open to it. It's more doable than it was at any other time, thanks to AI tools. Copacetic says you can't even get a vape past TSA, and you got it to Antarctica. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How did he get the thing? And Jaron was even smoking, was it a joint or a cigarette at one point? So you tell me, breaking, the Israeli government has released an official list of the top anti-Semites around the world. Number 1, Dan Bilzerian. Number 2, Greta Thunberg. Candace Owens coming in 4th. Nick Fuentes is 8. Ian Carroll is 9. Tucker Carlson is 10. How did Greta Thunberg rate higher than Nick Fuentes? That's bizarre. Although she did get on that boat, and they did pretend like they were getting shot with drones. Yeah, Lean Dion says, Jaron also said he was the first to smoke a joint in Antarctica. How did he smuggle weed? And what did he do with the roach? Exactly. A man perspective says the whole high-fiving and hugging and emotional talking was a bit much. Maybe it's the culture. But it all feels infantile for such a serious mission. Are you talking about the Artemis mission or the final experiment with Witsit Vapes? We're likely going to be live this evening. I was just trying to get back into a routine here. I'm not sure what it's going to be exactly, but it's going to be a morning, evening thing. Deprogram Truth says NASA says Mach 33 for escape velocity is no different than the Back to the Future 1.1 gigawatts, all movie magic. Yeah, 1.21 gigawatts. They made that correlation. And Back to the Future with Biff Tannen as Donald Trump is going to be performed at the Trump Kennedy Center this July. And again, Back to the Future with Trump in it also contains 9/11 predictive programming. And one of the common denominators with all of the Trumps in all these various movies is the association with 9/11, years before it happened. Oh, the Artemis mission post press conference. Okay, I'll have to take a look. The affection, the hugging, and all that stuff, it's very bizarre. But one of the things it could mean is if you look at the Catholic Mass, because I think a lot of this stuff is basically it's mystery Babylon science fiction, but it's basically a one world or a Catholic religion, universal religion. They do this thing where after the resurrection of the sun god, everybody stands up and they hug and shake hands with everybody around them. And they say, peace be with you. And that's kind of what I think we're seeing, because the drama of the space program is about world peace. It's about mankind as one giant leap for all man, transcending nations. That's what aliens represent. The aliens represent the dissolution of the borders. If you have no borders, you have one world. And when the aliens arrive, it creates this unity with the humans. Now the humans are all one because now we have the aliens, as Reagan described how it would unify us. So the aliens are going to unify us, whether they come down as benevolent space brethren or as destroyers that we unite to repel. Either way, the alien concept, I think, is ultimately about moving towards the one world. And that's why this new movie, Project Hail Mary, was very big on the hug. How many times did he hug the spider thing? It's all about the hug. Even the Adam Sandler movie, Spaceman, he's all hugging the spider alien. I mean, I think Ryan Gosling's character did more than just hugging. If you look at the innuendo and the subtext, you could translate it as the spider children at the end were their children. Human spider hybrids. Susan Anson, Witsit is back on and was on the last Strange World show. Not a mention of his Antarctica trip. Okay, I'll have to listen. He was on Strange World. Okay, so he's still around. Now the whole thing with him, I think, out there was he was saying that he vaped, but it was, I don't know how he described it. How did he play it off? I don't know. I just think the whole thing is just so shady. Like there shouldn't be any doubt. we shouldn't be questioning it. Like if somebody goes to another town or they go camping and they record it, there's no reason why you would just say, oh, this looks fake. Like reality just looks real. And this whole thing came out so contrived. It seemed so phony. It's like, well, how did you make a real trip look fake? Like that takes some special skill. How shady do you have to be to make something so mundane just appear to be fake? I mean, you're just sitting there recording a blank background. Yeah, Wits It Spits It, as he's called, has a collection of mugshots that McToon turned into these trading cards. Like it's a whole deck of them, which fits a pattern. The most prominent exponents of the flat Earth model uh, tend to have pretty extensive relationships with the law. Okay, a man with perspective says he found a vape in his bag and vaped off camera because he didn't want anyone to see. Yeah, that's his excuse. He didn't want anybody to see. But again, my question is, how did you get a joint and a vape to Antarctica? Like I thought they had there was like it's contraband. How would you even get it past the TSA? Lean Dion says the financial supporter of the final experiment made his fortune at 33. Duffy. Yeah, Duffy, for some reason, there's something very devilish about the guy. And I'm just saying that, like, when I picture the devil in the form of a human, I usually, like, there's a certain archetype. And Duffy looks like very diabolical. There's just this look. Like Anton LaVey had it, Ming the Merciless had it. There's just this certain look, like Doctor Strange. And I thought Will Duffy was a very satanic looking individual. And who is he serving anyway? You know, just I mean, I think what his whole thing was that if it was not true, then of course, yeah, you'd be committing a grievous error as a Christian if you're living according to a false model. But what he misses, what I think is the bigger picture here, is that it's not, to me, it's not a question of whether the space or the moon mission's real or not, but really it's the fact that the space program has a function entirely separate from space, from science itself, and that is its religious aspect, its religious purpose, utility. I think it's pageantry. And I think this Artemis mission and its correlation with Easter emphasizes it almost better than any mission we've seen in a long time. And as I pointed out before, Neil Armstrong actually performed the Eucharist on the surface of the moon. Bread and wine. They didn't record it, but yep, he did the Catholic Mass on the surface of the moon, which I think is really weird and bizarre and strangely out of place. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess it sort of makes sense. I mean, it would be like if a Muslim went on the moon and put down a prayer rug and did their prayers. Like, I guess it's not that far-fetched that somebody would, but bringing out the wine, like, that's not a thing that, normal practicing Catholics do, is, perform their own high mass. But again, Apollo was itself a ritual of sun worship and moon worship. It's the Great Rite. It's high-level witchcraft, syncretically blended with science fiction. All right, let's move on. I've heard Candace Owens say that NASA is a pagan cult, which is, coming from her, it doesn't really mean very much. It's very imprecise to say so. A man of perspective says, I don't think it's very hard to get a bit of weed past the TSA, and vapes are not contraband as far as I know. If the trip was real, deliberately, it was made to look sketchy. Well, I'd have to ask, you don't think it's hard to get weed past the TSA? And how dumb would you have to be to even try? I mean, imagine you're on a mission to Antarctica. The world's watching you. You think you're going to take that kind of a risk? Like, let me smuggle some drugs to Antarctica. What's the worst that could happen? So that I think that's. I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I've never smuggled weed, but maybe it's not that hard. But the fact is, why would you try it on a mission like that where you were paid so much money and you could possibly jeopardize the entire experiment? So what does that say about Jaron? Or was it even a threat? Did they even have to? And as far as vapes go, I don't know either. I think you're not allowed to vape on the plane, but from previous research on the matter, it kind of like it seemed to me that you can't bring anything over there. No trash. You can't leave anything behind. All right, let's continue here. I'm going to do a deeper mind map breakdown of the relationship between Waco, January 6th, Timothy McVeigh, Alex Jones, QAnon Shaman, and how it all connects weirdly with the number 33, and also the Timothy McVeigh character's relationship, or rather the McVeigh Koresh and their connection with Maxwell Azarello, the Burning Man who set himself on fire outside the courthouse when Trump was on trial. Because there's when I say meta script, we're talking about a script that transcends the individual story, and some of these are stories that take place across many decades. And there's a story here that begins in Waco, but is still ongoing, and it ties into the Turner Diaries. And if you remember, after Kirk was shot, there's a lot of mention of this being the turning point and Turning Point USA, the turning point where Western civilization saved itself from the political left. Well, the turning point is in the Turner Diaries, which inspired McVeigh. And the turning point is when the leader of the resistance is martyred. That's when the white nationalists rise up and start nuking everybody else. So there's this kind of interesting tie-in, even with recent events with that particular story. But I'm going to try to compile all that information before 419, so we can have a hoax anniversary discussion. And then less than a week after that, we'll be in an office and we'll be open phones again. And we'll be in Discord. I'm kind of looking towards creating another South Park episode to get some of our points across. Especially now that we have AI, it might actually be better than our previous efforts. So that'll be one of the topics of discussion in the voice chat. So I'll see you all in Discord. If you want the link, go to ips.monster. Appreciate the